U.S. have stopped after President Trump suspended the State Department's program, leaving thousands of Afghan refugees, including vetted ones, at risk. Some are now stranded abroad. And Barnstable County, Massachusetts is honoring Jeanne Morrison, chair of its Human Rights Advisory Commission, with the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Award for her decades of work advancing equity and justice on Cape Cod. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
New Schools for New Orleans wants to send a special shout out to our partner, the All-State Sugar Bowl. During the holiday break, over 30 teachers have the opportunity to ride in the New Year's Eve parade, and boy, did they have a blast. In addition, we had over 60 teachers attend the All-State Sugar Bowl game. Out of the 60, 11 teachers received a $1,000 gift card to purchase needed supplies to enhance the learning experiences for their students. Thank you, All-State Sugar Bowl, for your commitment to NOLA's teachers.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 1230 AM.
Well, good wake up, New Orleans. Yeah, not a winter wonderland anymore. Just a lot of black ice and melting snow. And be careful while we're moving around out there. This is OT. Dr. Wyatt, you all right?
I'm good. Good morning, OT. Missed y'all yesterday.
Well, good morning to you. Well, we missed you. I would say no doubt about it. But for folk who are out there, how did you fare, and how did most of the people you know, how are they faring during this natural weather event?
I mean, considering the circumstances that are like basically unprecedented in my lifetime here anyway. Like it happened in, I guess, the 80s when I was a baby to this magnitude, but I've not seen this kind of snow since I've been living in New Orleans. So considering the circumstances, all is well. I mean, little minor setbacks here and there, but I think people are getting cabin fever at worst. So that's a blessing. If that's the worst you got, then that's a blessing.
Yeah, and I think the last time it rivaled this was in 1895, I think it was, and I think back then Lake Charles got 11 inches of snow. I think we got between 8 and 10, some places more. So I have never seen that. And that's definitely the kind of snow I've seen before in the mountains and up north. Never here before. And we still got a foot of snow, several inches of snow on the ground. So I went out yesterday, rode through the district, went downtown, took Chef, started assessing how the streets were. And, yeah, it was interesting to see that layer of ice under the slush start to develop. So what I tried to tell people yesterday, in interviews or in conversations was these next few days, especially while people are driving, and as more people get out and about, and as more things come back, that ice and is going to be real tricky because, first of all, we don't know how to deal with it. Most of our tires, we don't have those tires to begin to traverse that kind of terrain that we have with the ice right now. So we're going to have to really be careful.
Absolutely. And I think we also just have to listen. You know, when our meteorologists and news outlets and experts, police, DOTD, elected officials, when they have the information and they're telling us the best thing to do is to just stay where we are if we're not mandated to be out, I think we should just listen. Wow. That's the hardest part for folk who are not accustomed to just kind of sheltering in place for an extended amount of time. They get jumpy and they just want to get out. But if the safest thing for you to do is to just stay put, and you don't have to be out there putting our first responders in jeopardy, putting yourself in jeopardy, putting other people in jeopardy unnecessarily, then I think that we should, the simplest thing to do is to just listen.
And you said the key word. That's the hardest part for a lot of people, especially these days, who require their freedom of being out and about. But let me say this: if you are not careful, your freedom can be limited because you're getting a wreck, you damage your car, or you'll cause some type of incident that'll restrict your freedom. I had it was real close yesterday while I was out assessing the streets and looking at what was passable and what wasn't, and communicating with our essential personnel. I was real cautious, driving real slow because I understand what's at stake. And there was a guy in the truck, man, just so eager to get around me that as soon as he saw a little opening, he went around me and he hit that slush and that ice, and his truck started to swerve. So, you know, I moved over, kind of got out of the way, but it was a person that if he would have just waited 20 more feet, he could have gotten into a part of the street where there was no ice, and he could have gotten the other lane. But he was in a hurry, and almost paid a price for it.
Well, thank God both of you guys are safe. Even the person who didn't use the best of common sense in that moment, we're grateful he's okay too. I think sometimes folk act irrationally in the moment, and then the moment they make that decision, they wish they had done something differently. So we should just listen. And again, too, like even keeping our children safe, if we have to do school virtually just to ensure that bus drivers are safe and they're safe, you know, transporting our children to and from, I have zero issues with virtual learning until the roads allow us to safely get from school into home and from home to school. And so for me, I never complain when it's about the kids, you know, being safe, when it's about us being safe. Because, I mean, a lot of parents also drive their children to school. You don't want to be out there if you don't have to be. And so I know, you know, sometimes you hear the parents like, oh, it's time for them to get out of here, X, Y, and Z. I think they're just kind of jokingly saying those sorts of things because the kids are eating up everything and they can't get out and they're looking in each other's faces 24/7. But safety first, and whatever we have to do to ensure the safety of all of us. Like, you know, I understand people have jobs where they have to be outside, but if you're not one of those people, just hold on a little bit longer. Be safe. Be patient as possible, and just sit there and hunker down until we're given the go-ahead to move about in some sort of normalcy.
Yeah, and you know, rely on the updates. You know, it was interesting yesterday. I had several texts and calls from people who were saying that they didn't know what was going on, and I'm wondering about that. So there were people that I knew, and I was texting updates and getting people as much information as possible. We're posting on social media to kind of give people updates, but it's just interesting. And then with one person, I said, "Well, are you watching television?" "Oh no, I don't watch it." "Well, if you just turned your television on, you would have seen." I thought most of the stations did a pretty good job at focusing on the event and at least giving as much information as possible, as well as the updates from emergency preparedness and Colin Arnold and the mayor's team at City Hall. You know, that information came out several times during the course of the day, and so I don't understand. In an age when we have access to too much information, the right and wrong, there were people complaining about they didn't know what was going on.
Well, you have to also realize, too, some folks just like saying that to create discourse. You know what I mean? So it might not necessarily mean they don't know. It's just they want to start a conversation, and that's their prompt, just their little conversation starter. But on the bright side of things, I was able to see, and I'm sure you were able to see, a lot of New Orleanians, a lot of folk who live here. You know, the entire city just seemed jovial, playing in the snow, enjoying weather that they've not seen in their lifetime. I know a lot of the children were excited, and just the joy from the children made shelter in place for a couple of days worth it. Just see them do snow angels. I even saw the mayor doing the snow angel and building things and having a snow fight with her daughter. I didn't see you in Ireland, but I also didn't specifically check your page. I was just kind of scrolling, and whatever I saw, I saw. but my son was playing in the snow, and he's almost 20 years old. My godson, or I was supposed to say grandson, I do not have a grandson. My godson is 3 years old, and he was enjoying the snow. This is his first time seeing snow. So, I mean, that was the bonus side of it. It kind of like helped make the idea of not being able to get out more bearable, because you can see the joy, you know, on the kids' faces and adults as well. It just seems so peaceful in New Orleans, you know, with the snow happening and folks just enjoying it. So that was the upside for me. I enjoyed seeing the little videos.
Well, I mean, the New York Times did an article. Katie Reckdahl, one of our great local journalists, she contributed to a piece the New York Times did, and I was actually featured in it because of they had seen me and Jasmine out and about and taping and video and information and sending it around so people could see what the community looked like. And the title was, Amid a Wintry Mess, New Orleans also savors a spectacle. And that's what we did, you know. So several people in our community made the snow an opportunity. And, you know, and it's like I said in an interview the other day, you know, we're no strangers to having to adjust to nature and to natural disasters or to weather events. So the key is just to take heed, be on notice, and check on our folks. And like you said, don't be hard-headed, and listen and follow good advice.
Absolutely. So let's see, after we break, are we prepared to talk about all the sweeping changes that are happening nationally in alignment with the document that most folk were saying never existed in terms of policy? Are we prepared to talk about that? Project 2025 and all of its realities come into fruition?
I mean, of course. I think that's we're definitely going to pivot. So bring us to break, and when we come back, we'll talk about what's happening with these executive orders and what we're seeing down at the border. And 7 San Antonio police officers were shot. So let's our hearts and our prayers go out to them. So there's a whole lot happening nationally that we'll talk about, and that much of what's happening in D.C. that can affect us here. So bring us home for break, Dr.
Absolutely. Well, happy Thursday, everybody. Listen, we'll have a lot more from National Conversations with 1238. I'm Dr. We'll see y'all on the other side of the break.
This is Monica Pierre along with Sally Ann Roberts Daybone, co-host of Your Power is On.
Your Power is On gospel music show is coming on at a new time. Tune in Sunday mornings from 7 to 8 a.m. for music that feeds the spirit. Get your Sunday on.
Right here on WBOK 1230 a.m. and WBOK1230.com, the station you listen to
all day long.
NOLA Public Schools' main round enrollment for kindergarten through 12th grade is now open. With 73 schools available through the NOLA Public Schools Common Application Process, or NCAP, finding the right school fit for your family is easier than ever. List up to 12 choices to maximize your chances and apply by January 24th. We're all in, and we hope you are too. Apply today at enrollnolaps.com. That's enrollnolaps.com.
Experience Bunchy, a powerful short film by Bama artist-in-residence Esty Elmo Wexler. This deeply moving film explores themes of identity, resilience, and cultural heritage. After the screening, join Esty as she shares her personal immigration journey from Ethiopia to Israel, reflecting on spirituality, motherhood, and the bonds between mothers and daughters. Don't wait. Register now at Eventbrite.com. Just search Bunchy on Eventbrite. Don't miss this unforgettable evening, Thursday, January 23rd from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the JCC, 5342 St. Charles Ave, New Orleans. This is a conversation you don't want to miss. See you there.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 1230 AM.
We are back, and Dr. Y.O.T., the early bird, and black ice and piles of snow that's still on the ground. So, yeah, let's be careful out there, man. If you're, if your roads are clear enough where you think you can drive, and you do drive with caution, drive slow, be mindful that there are a couple of sheets of black ice that are frozen underneath your tires, and so take your time. So, yeah, don't be in a rush. Like it seems to me that 47, Dr. Y, was in a rush to sign all these executive orders that, and many are impacting our Congress and impacting our community already. So, no, absolutely, man. There's a whole lot of stuff that's going on.
Yeah, and the scariest part about it, I won't even say scary. I think the most not so shocking thing about it is it's affecting the very people who also voted for him, and now they are like taken aback and appalled that all of these policy changes and these executive orders are actually affecting their everyday way of life, which is what we try to espouse to them during this whole run-up to the election. And somehow they felt that because they were supporting him, that they would somehow be immune from sweeping policy changes. And so you have folk who have actually voted for the current president who are now on social media begging him and others to have him, take a look at the policy changes he's making because they feel like these are unintended consequences of other issues that he's trying to fix. No, doesn't work like that. It's not like he's going to create policy that's going to singularly help just you and, to the detriment of other folks. All his policies are about the extremely rich and wealthy, whether it's a corporation or individual. And if you don't fit that mold, predominantly white men, then you are, in fact, one of us when it comes to the policy changes. So I think that's the eye-opening moment for a lot of avid Trump supporters. So,
yeah, I mean, well, first of all, and it's like you and I were texting and communicating yesterday evening. It's a lot of times if you take advantage and there's an attempt to hurt or impact others, life will show you that not only will it sometimes come back to you, but it will affect the people that you care about. And, you can't make policy changes that will potentially affect 330 million people like we have in this country and think it's not going to impact, if it doesn't impact you or your immediate family, it's going to impact the people that support you or the people that, look, none of us are that far removed from pain, from pleasure or pain, from poverty or gain in this country today. And bad policies will impact good people too often, and in many cases they'll impact your people if you're not careful. And that's what we're going to see, and that's what we're seeing already.
Absolutely. Even down to the tax plan that he's coming out with, even this idea of him going around and firing, folks based on, it's almost like he's on a revenge tour, if you ask me. That's what it looks like. and to fire the lady that was heading the Coast Guard, and she has a record that is just, top notch. Like she has more qualifications for her position than Pete Hegseth has to be the defense secretary, and yet she's unemployed for no other reason other than she's a woman, first and foremost, and I think that's what that's all about. But she's an admiral, and I just don't understand how this is being allowed. There's really no due process in most of these cases. His decisions are absolute, and it's just a scary thing. I mean, the equal employment, that's a 60-year policy, and with the swipe of a pen, I mean, he's undoing things that are meant to protect marginalized communities of folk or demographics of people, and it doesn't do anything but align itself with racism and white supremacy, and nobody could ignore that. Nobody can, rewrite what that's really about, as they like to do so often. Just mandating things that are just weird. I don't. This feels more like a dictator than it does a leader of a free nation. It just does not align itself with what we want in our president. But we knew this, and we tried to make it big picture for people, and they just didn't believe it. And now we're all in the find out stage.
Well, I don't. There's several policies that are going to take effect and impact immediately. I think then there are others you wait and see. I've been in politics long enough to know that people complain about A, and then 5 years later they say, "Oh, I understand A didn't hurt, but it wasn't as bad as we thought, or it actually had a positive impact." That's what leaders do, but leaders don't purposely go out their way to hurt people. Now, people in political positions, you may not like it, it may not be fair, but they serve at people's pleasure. So we may not like someone losing their job or being displaced or being removed from a position, but that's part of politics. A lot of people got their job that way, so they serve at the pleasure of political.
I understand that. I absolutely do. I just like to understand myself, the rationale behind decisions, because there has to be a reason. Just as he did these sweeping pardons of the insurrectionists, and there are some people in media brave enough to push back and ask him what his rationale was and why would he pardon certain people. He did not have an explanation. He did not. He continued to just talk as if the question was never posed. He didn't give a clear, concise answer about it, and I don't believe he cares to. So that's my only thing. You're absolutely correct. A lot of positions, just like here in the city, people serve at the pleasure of their bosses. But at the end of the day, I believe when you're making sweeping reforms that affect the entire country, there should be a sound rationale behind the decision making of our commander in chief. And when you can't just answer a basic question as to why would you want to pardon someone who attacked police officers if you are so pro-police, then and you don't have an answer for that, that tells me that your judgment or your reasoning didn't align with sound judgment or rationale, and you're just doing it because you can.
Yeah.
That's what it comes across as.
A lot of this stuff is unfortunate. At some point, they're going to have to reverse these decisions. The pain is going to affect people there'll be unintended consequences. I think that's a fact. But I also listened to Congressman Nick Barrow, the Hispanic congressman from California, very well respected on both sides. And he said something that was really kind of grown and mature about a lot of the border policies and the things that were happening with, this whole immigration stuff. And, and as a Democratic congressman, he said, well, hey, man, look, a lot of the people in his community, Hispanic community, actually support the anti-immigration process or for people following the rules for immigration. And he said, let's kind of work together maybe to do something that everybody supports, because he mentioned the impact that illegal immigrants. They actually broke down the demographic. They said it's not just people crossing the Mexican border for South American anymore. There are people coming from countries all over, countries that have great relationships with us, some that don't have. There are people that have good intentions, some that don't. The cartels are moving drugs and trafficking young children across the border. And as someone it was one of the first times I heard someone who was qualified to speak on it, who represents that area, who wasn't a Republican, but who was a Democrat, who's very well respected. Basically talking about we need to have a closer look. We need to have restrictions. And we're barely having services to take care of people who are already here. Our indigenous communities of color. So more thought and more policy and more organization needs to be put into this thing. And so I enjoyed hearing and listening to his take on it, whereas others were just talking about the cruelty of it, and this is cruel and this and that. He said, hey, look, some of these aspects of it that are immediately affect children and families would need some thought. But the rest of it is needed also because it's impacting our country and resources that we need for people and families that are here already. And I appreciated his take on that and saying, look, potato, tomato, good policy, bad policy, something has to happen because it's out of control.
No, yeah, I also appreciate robust conversations and people with varying perspectives, because sometimes it takes just somebody saying out loud a varying perspective for you to be like, okay, I see, where you're going with that. But for me, all I'm asking for is what is the rationale behind a lot of these decisions, and if you're making them and you're making them in such haste, then surely you should have some reasoning as to why it's happening. Because something like a birthright, the ending of the birthright, I just, how far back does that go in my mind? Because as a person who can think a little bit, most of us aren't. This is not our country. Like we were bought here on ships, right? So how far back does that go? What gives us a right to be a United States citizen, if not for the fact that we were born here? As just opposed to a person whose mother and father illegally came here, quote unquote, and had a baby here, and that gives them the right to be here because there's a baby here with them. But if you're in the birthright, like how far back does that go? How many generations does it impact? Like, I just have questions, and I just want to know, like, where are we going with this? It's a whole lot of policies in one day, but that's because he went into office already with a plan to do exactly what he's doing. And another thing that caught my eye that seems trivial, but with this one flag rule that he's now trying to implement, and I think it's so cute and funny that it happened after folk were allowed to fly a MAGA flag on governmental buildings, such as the governor's mansion here in the state of Louisiana. Right? I thought that was kind of very telling in terms of the timing. And so now he's saying only, the United States flag can be flown on governmental buildings, which is this one flag rule. But, what happens with the MAGA flags and the Trump flags and the Black Lives Matter flag and the Pride flags? He's aiming for those flags, but does that also encompass the MAGA flag? Because we know our governor flew one on the governor's mansion. I'm sure there were other governors, in other places, but I live here, so I was very concerned about it happening here, because that's the people's house. It doesn't belong to the individual who's occupying the building at that time. It belongs to the citizen of that state, and that the occupant is just the person in charge of, in terms of the governor's mansion at the time. But that's not his house. He doesn't get to fly a MAGA flag on the governor's mansion. So a lot of things were just very jarring that were happening, and I'm sitting here like there's no way this was allowed, and then it was allowed. And so there's a lot to talk about, we'll see, in terms of these executive orders, forcing the federal workers, back to in-person work. He's laid off.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that. I want to see people go back to work. But that's just,
I'm not saying I disagree with them all. I'm just saying we're just talking about what he's doing. But there are so many studies that says, like, the workplace productivity is up with people working from home. I don't know. I'm good either way. I actually like interfacing with people. So I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying, just kind of talking robustly about all of the sweeping changes that have been made. There's a lot of people who agree with folks going back to work. But if there's like some data that tells us that people are happier, productivity is up, then what is the goal, in terms of, are you just wanting to monitor folks? Like, what's the goal? Because if I'm getting more bang for my buck with you working at home, productivity is up, morale is up, then what's the reason? That's all I'm asking. I just like things to make sense in my brain. So that's the question I was asking.
Well, we didn't have the first 100 days. I think we had the first 100 minutes. So it was there was a whole lot done. Of course, the Laken Riley Act, a young woman who was unfortunately killed by someone who should not have been allowed in this country because of their violent background. I think in many cases we're going to have to take a look at those policies again, because it could affect a lot of innocent people. And listening to the head of the Board of Czar now, Holman, I don't think anyone, I think the majority of Americans, 85%, didn't have a problem with them taking a look at illegal immigrants who were involved in violent acts or who had long criminal histories, and starting with that group before you start to deal with birthers. The issue, I think you were correct with birthers, is how far do you go back, which generation do you impact? So I think there definitely needs to be a deeper dive into that, because you could affect our economy. And one of the things I think Congressman Vera said yesterday was that there are a lot of people who have been here a lot, especially when you talk about the agricultural economy or the service economy out west, that, you start to deport those people, then that whole economic system begins to fall down. So there's a lot more thought that has to happen as these policies start to take more hold and begin to affect each of us. And like you started, there are unintended consequences, and if there's this sinister move to impact certain communities, at some point I can assure you that it's going to hurt the people that are close to you.
Oh, absolutely. I can remember it, and I know you also can remember, Florida went through a crisis in terms of their local economy when all of this immigration talk started happening. The folk who work in those service industries in Florida were afraid to go to work, and people were purposely staying home and opting out of actually going to work. The truck drivers weren't delivering goods, and so Florida literally came to a halt in terms of their economic tourism dollars, and so it was a very frightening thing for businesses in Florida. It was all over social media how they were directly impacted by a lot of the decisions that their governor was making, and how it was, turning their local economy upside down. So there are absolutely going to be consequences of these executive orders, and we have yet to see the full brunt of it, but it's happening. And now folks are pleading with him to change his mind about certain things he's done so far.
Deploying military to the border. There's a certain level of training that goes into ICE and immigration agents. So how does that work with the military? Military is trained to fight battles, go to war. This whole thing about targeting cartel members. The cartels got more money than the government. How does that threaten everyday people? So you may not want to start a war with another country, but you start a war with groups that have more money than other countries. So there's a whole lot to consider. The refugee arrivals program, they suspended that, and that's effective January the 27th, a pending 90-day review. So, refugees are usually people that are seeking asylum. They're under duress and hardship in their country, and they usually need to be rescued. So how do you approach issues like that? So, more money for the wall. So there's a whole lot of things. Giving Homeland Security the Secretary the latitude to establish agreements with individual states and local law enforcement agencies. So what does that look like? Can they turn the local state law enforcement agencies? Do they partner with federal immigration folks to sic the law on people, without due process, without vetting? So there's so much that happened and will happen that I don't think, and I think that's why the way you started the show, what are unintended consequences and hurting people that they didn't put much thought into.
Yeah, especially when you consider that he's now trying to have us removed from the World Health Organization. Like, what does that mean in terms of the health of the country, especially when you have a man that you're trying to get appointed to the position who doesn't believe in common sense medical care like vaccinations and things of that nature. So it's just these are perilous times right now, and it's very uncertain what this is going to look like for the majority of folks. Because again, I'm prepared, and I'm preparing myself for everything in my life to go up in terms of taxes. Like owning a home is going to be, more of a struggle for the everyday working class person. It's going to be harder because the tax breaks are not for us. And so, I'm thinking about things like that. And, when we talk about homelessness on here, all of us are one bad piece of legislation away from that reality. And that's just the long and short of it. It's not like wages are going up when all of these things are happening. Wages are not moving, but taxes are moving, cost of living is moving, and what you're earning is not moving. At some point, those two trains will have to collide.
Well, let's stay there with the WHO, the World Health Organization, and then especially us removing ourselves from the Paris Accord to deal with climate change and the impacts on global impacts on emissions, gas emissions, the greenhouse effect. But let's take the World Health Organization first, right? The importance there is to have our doctors and our scientists and our researchers on one accord with scientists around the world. So what do we threaten with removal from the World Health Organization? How vulnerable does that make us when you talk about access to information? You may want to talk about, COVID coming from a monkey, a lab in China. You have access to information about what's happening around the world. Many of the top scientists and doctors and researchers are from other countries. So what do we risk by removing ourselves? And what do we know now? That we're maybe faced with natural disasters, but when you talk about a lot of these diseases, man, that are being weaponized in certain labs, how do we get that information? If someone is being involved in medical warfare or germ warfare, how do we get information if we remove ourselves from the WHO with other scientists around the world who can warn us about the impacts of what's happening so we can get a good start at it? So, and I just think that doesn't make sense when you talk about global impacts on germs and diseases right now. Why would you remove yourself from the WHO? So, that's something to think about and should be given more thought to. So hopefully Congress will step in at some point, both Republican and Democrat, and kind of correct that hasty move, Don.
Yeah, listen, I know we have to break to go and pay some bills, but it's always good talking to you. I feel like every time we start talking, we can talk about all sorts of things, but there's a lot of things happening locally and nationally that I hope we we can jump into on the other side of the break. But I'm excited to be back talking to you. I can't wait to get back in studio because it just feels different when we're trying to do our thing virtually. It feels extremely different.
There's no doubt about it, and that's why it's WBOK 12:30 a.m.
What New Orleans is talking about.
Hey, whose station?
Our station.
No, that's our station. Back after the break.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Tune in to The Monitor's Mic, where we talk about oversight, policing, and you. Hosted by the Office of Independent Police Monitor, we're here to shine a light on policing issues that matter, from real-time policing updates to in-depth interviews. Every Friday at noon on WBOK.
WBOK and LCMC Health are proud to present Keeping You Well Cafe, 60 Minutes with LCMC Health, where the doctors speak directly to the people of New Orleans. LCMC Health is committed to improving the quality of care here in New Orleans, the Gulf South, and beyond. The Keeping You Well Cafe is another way for LCMC Health to engage with the community. At the Keeping You Well Cafe, LCMC Health joins WBOK and local businesses to answer your questions about wellness and health.
Welcome to Liberty Bank and Trust, where your financial journey transforms communities. Since 1972, our customized banking solutions power your dreams and fuel your community growth. Every dollar you invest with us circles back to empower more people, ensuring opportunities for generations. Join us at Liberty Bank. Together, we empower possibility. Visit libertybank.net to start banking with purpose. Liberty Bank, there's freedom here.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 12:30 a.m.
We up, dang. That's the early bird. I got every person going out there because it is still cold, man. And Doc, it's always better to be in the studio. It's always good to see your smiling face and feel your brain waves, right? And the warmth and the intellect that I think you bring and we bring to a lot of this stuff that's going on everywhere, man, whether it's on your block, in your neighborhood, city, state, nation, or around the world. The other thing that I mentioned as we were going to break was the Paris Accord, to look, whether you believe in climate change or not, we're experiencing something different here right now. So I don't know. I don't know how many people we still got to convince here, because whatever Mother Nature is doing, she's doing something different, and it's obvious we're having an impact one way or another. So to remove ourselves from the Paris Accord, I mean, it just doesn't even make sense, right? So if you can reduce gas house emissions, if you can save the planet, if you can have cleaner water and cleaner air, Doc, who wouldn't want to be for that?
Well, that's the question. I mean, even down to this idea of how the elimination of the CDC will affect everyday citizens, because we rely on our government to inform us about infectious diseases or, all type of pandemics and things that will, affect our everyday way of living. And if we don't have any line of communication to those folk who give us this valuable or invaluable information, then how are we going to be an informed populace to make the best decisions for us and our families in terms of safety? This is a scary reality. Again, we try to do our best here at WBOK to inform folk about what was inside of the Project 2025 document. I also know the New Orleans United Front did an entire panel. There are so many organizations that did panels to break down that document, and still folks ignored it. And now we're living in the reality of Project 2025 on a national scale that is going to have sweeping effects all across this country. And that's the part of it that I think folk ignored to the detriment of the majority of the people. And so that's the sad reality. What happens with the Department of Education? What happens with the World Health Organization? What happens with the CDC? What happens with the FDA? Like, these are entities that we rely on in terms of layers of protection, and we just won't see those layers being effective because they're slowly going to disappear, and that's the scariness in it all.
Well, I saw also an interview with Chris Cuomo on News Nation yesterday. We watched the interview with Elon Musk's dad, and of course we had heard from Elon's mom recently, but not his father. His dad has always, Elon's dad had always been a Trump supporter for whatever his reason. Of course, they live in South Africa, but he said him and his son differed in the fact that his son was a Democrat, a moderate to liberal Democrat. Both of his kids. So he said it was a couple of reasons and things that impacted Elon, where during the Biden administration, where he wasn't invited to some meetings on what was happening with the electric cars or this whole artificial intelligence thing. So he felt like the Biden administration or Democratic officials were actually leaning the wrong way or actually excluding him. So it sounds like some of his what he did to impact this race sounds like a lot of it could have been personal, that he didn't feel like Democrats, especially specifically the Biden administration, kind of disrespected him in his international position on what he was doing to impact technology.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So you turn full Nazi because your feelings are hurt? Is that what we're doing now? Like, are we on? I mean, that's just what the current occupant of the White House is doing. It's like a revenge tour. It's like anybody that didn't side with me publicly, didn't wasn't a staunch loyalist to me, didn't do as I said without any pushback. Anybody that fits into those modes are now subject to my wrath, and that's what it seems like here. And the gaslighting is at an all-time high because I'm sure you saw him do the full Nazi salute, and I'm sure you saw the folks in MAGA justifying it and saying that it wasn't a Nazi salute, and it was the news media even placated to it by saying it was an odd gesture. No, it was what it was. And to have somebody that close to the president of the United States and helping to make decisions for an entire country, to align himself with the Nazi value system in this golden age of America is quite sickening, because there was nothing golden about that age of America. Just like there's never been anything great about the country when you talk about equity and liberation and freedom for a large majority of people. And so if you could go full Nazi in front of the world, I don't think there's anything that's above you. Anything is fair game with this administration. You went full Nazi. And nobody could tell me that wasn't a Nazi salute.
We differ on that piece. I'm not gonna say that someone went full Nazi. So one day he was a moderate to liberal Democrat, and so then now he's a Nazi. So I don't know what's going on in his head and his heart, and I don't know if it's the way.
I know you better not get on nobody's
only,
stage and put your hand to your heart and go straight out with it. They're gonna call you a Nazi, because that's what it was a Nazi salute. Now, whether he's a full Nazi, but he's fully embraced being thought of like that. Let me say that for you, because for me, I don't think that I will ever hail Hitler on any given day for any reason under any circumstances. And I don't have to be a Jew. I wouldn't have had to have folk, who were victims of the Holocaust to be able to understand how heart-wrenching it was to watch that happen on such a huge stage. And it's just awful that people are making excuses for that. That, to me, you're embracing like this whole the idea of being a dictator or being in charge of people's actual existence. And it's crazy that we've normalized insanity in this country, that we can allow him to do that on a stage that big, and then the national media makes concessions for it or tries to.
Well, I don't need to focus on a hand gesture for whatever his intention was. I can't get into someone's head and heart, but what I can say is the policies and what comes out of your mouth. That's enough for me, because I know that too many people in my community that are stereotyped or branded, and in many cases that they use the most extreme example to deal with the Panthers, to deal with Malcolm Martin, to deal with Huey, in many cases today, Minister Farrakhan. So they'll use the most extreme comment and the most extreme example to make a case out of it. So, however he waved his hand or whatever people thought that symbol was, it's enough for me to see what your policies are. And so I hear
think
you.
We're saying the same thing in two different ways, Oliver. Because if you're bringing up all of those people, I would venture off to say, look how they were handled as opposed to how Elon Musk is being handled, right? And so therein lies the reality of what we're dealing with. These people are fighting for liberation and freedom and equity for people. This man is a full-on dictator, and all he wants to do is uphold wealthy white supremacy. And look at how the media handled those two. All of the people you named, if you juxtapose them against how they're handling Elon Musk and his blatant racism and aggressions toward poor people or marginalized communities, is a vast difference in how
but that's not my point.
So my point is the stereotypes. Two different ways, but
my point is the stereotypes were wrong, and we've been stereotyped individually with people that didn't know. You don't know what's in my head or what's in my heart, but the policies which you put in writing or what comes out of your mouth. Those things ultimately matter. And what we're seeing right now is the unintended consequences or the potential global impact, withdrawing from trade agreements. So do you can say what you think tariffs and withdrawing from trade agreements, the impact it'll have, but what happens when we don't have access to that stuff that's affordable, that's made in China, especially with costs going out of control? What happens with trade agreements with Canada and Mexico for goods that we can afford, that Americans not only want but what they need? It just seems to me that they've moved with haste, impacting policies that will unfortunately have a global impact and a national impact that hopefully it won't be what they intended it, but if it is what they intended, it's going to impact people that they didn't think it would impact, and that's a fact. We've seen that already. Right.
So how do you feel about this true gender how will that play itself out?
Well, look. I believe God made. I interpret my Bible. God made man and woman. Whatever people want to identify with, that's up to them. It's just like I don't think we can tell a woman what to do with her body. But in terms of politics discussions about that, I usually follow my faith and how I was raised and what I believe. I don't have anything against anyone. But I don't want someone with daughters and with a granddaughter I'm very protective of them in their spaces, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I listen. I that's why we're here to talk about it, because again, the same concept about we can't tell a woman what to do with her body. We can literally say any person what to do with their body. So I'm just trying to figure out, for me, what that looks like in terms of the current reality of things for a large amount of people. So for me, I just want to see how it's going to unfold itself. Again, what people personally want to do for themselves has no impact on me. Like, that's your house, your body, your choice, your right to do. My issue is when it starts to bleed itself into the lives of other people. Like, for example, I know there's a large amount of folk who have an issue with biological males, having any sort of interactions with biological females in terms of sporting, in terms of athletics, in terms of competition. So I get the pushback or the concern. I'm just trying to see policy-wise, how is that going to trickle down? Because again, everything has to come down and have impact where we are. And so when we talk about school leaders, like how is that policy going to ensure that they are able to run their schools in terms of equity for all the kids that they're in charge of governing? When you talk about the medical field, like, what does that look like and how is that going to shake out? Because now you do have folk who are identifying as female who were born male and vice versa. So how does that impact them, and what has to happen moving forward for them? So, because I know he's come out with that, saying that there are only two genders, and so I'm just trying to see how how is that gonna come out? Because I don't want grown men who have testosterone levels that are creating a vast difference in how that looks in terms of competition. I don't want a male punching on a female in terms of boxing, or a male racing a female in terms of on the track. That's why you have different classifications. You have, women's sports and men's sports. So I get it. What does that look like now? That's not the reality because of all of the changes with these third policies. I just want to see what it looks like and how is that going to shake out in terms of everyday way of living for people. In terms of humanity, that's all I care about. Like, as long as you're treating people humanely and you're giving folk the option to thrive in whatever existence they choose for themselves, and it's not harming other people, you do what you want for yourself. But we'll see what that looks like in policy.
Well, when you lead with your humanity, you're humane, even with people you differ with. So,
yes,
when you move post haste, then a lot of times there are unintended consequences. Right?
Yes.
And they're good people that come from every sector of this life, this existence, this planet. So, at some point they're going to have to revisit a whole lot of things, a whole lot of the 100 executive orders that happened in 100 minutes, to take a look at its impact on all of us, including this planet. So, a lot of those things will be revisited at some point. But, we're still part of the human race. And, most people want is to be safe, take care of their families, be their best selves, live whatever they consider their truest life, and they can do it in peace. Let them do it in peace. If they can contribute to our civilization in a positive way, let them be them while they're not hurting anyone else. So, but there's also a divine authority, and that's watching all of us, and how we cast judgment, how we differ from one another, how in many cases we think our opinion is the only opinion. And at the end of the day, I believe I'm going to have to answer to that authority in terms of how I conduct my life. So I'm going to have to be real careful in terms of how I judge people and what I think, and live by my faith. So that's my commitment on all those morality fronts, and all those fronts about humanity. And I believe in my God, and I believe in that book, one book with 66 books, 39 old and 27 new. Now, I'm going to do my best to be as mindful of that and live as close to those teachings. And when I violate them, I'm going to get on my knees and ask for forgiveness. And when I hurt with someone, I'm going to ask that they forgive me and that my God forgive me, especially if I'm enlightened and know better.
Yeah, and speaking of safety, we have to go to break, but when we come back, we'll talk to the Director of Homeland Security and give us some updates, and especially in terms of this winter storm that we were not prepared for. So I don't think there's any other way to end that segment with the way that you did. But on the other side, we'll talk to Mr. Colin Arnold, Homeland Security Director for New Orleans. We'll have that and a whole lot more. This is WBOK 1238.
Dr. Wyatt and OT, whose station? Yeah, it's our station. We'll be back.
WBOK 1230 AM New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know with BIN News. A new wildfire, the Hughes Fire, has burned 500 acres near Santa Clarita, California, and is 0% contained as crews also battle the Palisades and Eaton fires. Strong winds are pushing flames through canyons and up hills. Former Black Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is criticizing President Trump for targeting her on social media, noting she had already resigned from the President's Export Council before he claimed to have fired her. She urged him to focus on global issues instead. The Supreme Court will rule on police immunity in a Houston case where Constable Roberto Felix fatally shot a black driver fleeing a toll stop. The decision could open the door to more excessive force lawsuits. And Reverend Al Sharpton is urging a boycott of companies reversing DEI programs. Speaking at a MLK Day rally, he emphasized King's fight for equality and said the National Action Network will target at least 2 companies within 90 days. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
New Schools for New Orleans wants to send a special shout out to our partner, the All-State Sugar Bowl. During the holiday break, over 30 teachers had the opportunity to ride in the New Year's Eve parade, and boy, did they have a blast. In addition, we had over 60 teachers attend the All-State Sugar Bowl game. Out of the 60, 11 teachers received a $1,000 gift card to purchase needed supplies to enhance the learning experiences for their students. Thank you, All-State Sugar Bowl, for your commitment to NOLA's teachers.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 1230 AM.
Yeah, Doc, man, I'll sure be glad when we get back in the studio. I even prefer when we have our guests in studio, but right now we're going to make do with this event. And talking about making do, this gentleman's not only making do, he's doing the best he can do with Homeland Security and with navigating us through this event. Colin Arnold, welcome back to the Good Morning Show.
Morning, OT.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, ma'am.
So how are you and your family, and how's you and your life? You giving updates on the city and all the rest of us and how we live. But how are you doing, man?
I'm okay. We're getting a little tired. It's been a couple of days of trying to marshal a lot of resources and things that we're not usually used to asking for, like snow plows and salt and we work with sand quite a bit on other things like flooding and hurricanes and stuff. But it's just been it's been a very interesting learning lesson, and I think you're going to see some pretty dramatic improvement today. the temperatures increase. And I'm sorry I was a little bit late coming on. I wanted to get the most updated plowing information that I had, and thanks for working with me, OT. We were able to get significant areas in New Orleans East and Lower Ninth Ward overnight, and it's looking, it's looking pretty good. We're going to continue to plow and pick up snow and move snow as long as we have to until Mother Nature takes over. And I think, like I said, we're going to see some pretty significant improvement as the sun comes up this morning and as the temperatures start to rise. And by the end of the day today, I'm already starting to see the city come back to life. I just advise people to be very cautious. The roads are slick, and we are still below freezing. But I think, between this afternoon and getting kind of back to normal tomorrow, I think we're moving towards where we want to be.
Well. First, let me thank you, because for folks who know me, I was out on the ground being careful, heeding Colin and Homeland Security's advice, but we're able to get some stuff done, like on Chef, so people with emergency and dire situations could have access a lot of the roadways, and a special thanks to you for working with the Levee Management Authority to clear that runway for a very important visit I think we're getting from the governor to come in and kind of assess the weather damage. So shout out to you for that, man, because resources were thin, and unfortunately or not, you found yourself being the lead person for the entire region, and not just the city of New Orleans. So there were people, our neighbors, were counting on the city and counting on you, and that had to be a different kind of pressure and a different kind of feeling, knowing that you and your expertise was assisting a large part of this region, a large part of the state. I know you didn't expect that, but thank you for being that for all of us. So while a lot of people, we were challenged with some resources here, our neighbors were expecting you and counting on you to give them some relief.
Well, we're all a team, and the mayor was very clear. At one point yesterday, it had looked like we were going to go over and plow the causeway. Fortunately, Mother Nature did a lot of the work that we were going to be trying to do with the plows, and we talked with Carlton Dufourchot with the causeway, and ended up not needing to do that. But the relationship is there, and I would consider that also with DOTD locally here with Scott Boyle, who I would say is probably been out there and about, running around like a madman trying to get a lot of stuff done as well. And, when we huddled together and we had this opportunity to get these plows and got them, then it became, what can we do to get all these roads, lead to New Orleans? And so we want to make sure that, our neighbors are good and that we're getting, all the roads into the city as well. And so that became the Crescent City Connection and the Expressway. And, I think that they're moving pretty quickly now on I-10 to get that ready to go. And so it's coming together. I just ask that, I hope that the folks can hang tight this morning and into this afternoon. We are starting to see more life, more businesses opening, which is always a good thing. Just be very careful and realize we're not quite out of it yet, but I'm very hopeful that this afternoon we're going to see significant improvement and move on from there.
Hey, Dr. Wyatt?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Hey,
I thought y'all could hear me. I actually was talking. So OT and I were talking earlier, and we were just saying that I think one of the major things to do is to just listen. Like a lot of the times we are just eager to kind of do, but if we just listen and just stay off the road. But my question would be, because I'm a West Banker, when do you have any timeline for when is the Crescent City back up, or are we still asked to go Huey P if we have to navigate to the West Bank?
The UEP, they've been managed to. It's a great question. They've been managed to keep that pretty much open, at least one lane in each direction. It's a little more difficult on the Crescent City connection, although it opened yesterday fully, at least for most of the afternoon. The problem was that towards the evening we went back down below freezing, and that bridge just pretty much automatically freezes up, and even gets to a point where it's not safe for our public safety vehicles to even cross, which is, a very daunting challenge for us because we do need access to University Medical Center from both sides of the river. And so I think they've done a really good job, DOTD, and then, of course, with some of the assistance that we've been able to provide of keeping at least a lane or two open throughout this. But there were times where, it was even difficult for our own vehicles just to get up the on-ramps to get onto the expressway, to get onto the bridge. And so not as much of a challenge from DeGaulle from the West Bank side, but Tchoupitoulas is an example we know is very steep. Most of those on-ramps and off-ramps are very steep on the expressway in the city. And so keeping those going has been very challenging. But like I said, I think you'll see rapid improvement today. And at one point yesterday, vehicles were crossing Crescent City Connection, and I anticipate that happening today, probably in the afternoon.
Yeah, because a lot of the concern, when I was watching the coverage of it, a lot of the concern wasn't actually on the bridge itself. A lot of the accidents were happening on the approach to the bridge from varying ways. And
absolutely.
I guess why they were saying that it needed to close for the safety.
And look, we had the public. I'll give the public an A+ on being prepared for this, because we asked them to stay in and they did. And we, I kind of equate it to hurricanes. We do the same thing. We tell people shelter in place. We give people instructions on how to keep themselves safe, and they do it, and they've done it. And I think today we're going to get into an area of there will start to be some fatigue about this, and I totally understand. I think our goal is to not get into the annoyance end of it, and so I'm hoping that by continuing to do what we're doing, and then also with the weather cooperating with us and beginning to get warmer and warmer. I mean, we're going to be 70 degrees, I think, by next Wednesday, which is just mind-boggling to me. But it is what it is. So we're going to see, particularly through tomorrow. This will probably all be gone over the weekend, and other than maybe some areas of where berms where snow has been piled up, but I think that'll even be gone probably by Sunday. And so, excuse me. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We do have 3 warming centers, and really they've become somewhat shelters open throughout the city. We have the Rosenwald Center in Central City. We've got the Treme Center in Treme, and we've got St. Bernard Rec Center that opened yesterday afternoon just because we'd filled up the other 2. And we originally were going to go to Joe Brown in New Orleans East, but because of the transportation challenges that we've been having, we determined it would be better to try and keep it closer to where our other 2 centers were, where we could get people. And we've responded to every transportation request that we've gotten, and I got to give credit to Nate Fields and his team with Homeless Services and the Health Department and my own team here at NOCEP and EMS. Probably many of the transports were done by New Orleans EMS in order to get people that needed transportation to the warming centers and get that done. So we're looking at the last number I had, a little over 200 people that we've been helping through this.
Yeah, I mean, Chief Samaran, like you and the rest of the team, have always been exemplary. One of the pleasures of my job is working with people like you and him and many others, man, who put our community first. Colin, I'd like you to address the situation. No one's, everybody's not always satisfied. But when I was on the ground, every time we spoke, whether it was communicating with you or Joe Thread or other city officials, action was taken. Talk about, but we still heard comments from people in Algiers, people in the east or some other outlying areas. Talk about that challenge and talk about what you guys were doing, because even though we didn't have that warming center open because of transportation, you guys were deploying resources and doing everything you can to make sure that parts of the east and parts of Algiers were addressed with. Talk about the challenges specifically to that and what you guys were doing.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that is just completely outside of our normal wheelhouse. I think we'll learn a lot from this. Certainly have developed some contacts with some, folks like these plow operators. This company has been great with us, and look, they were here when we needed them, and I'm hoping to have them on my Rolodex, moving into the future. I mean, with things like climate change, and I'd like to think that this is a one-off kind of event. This amount of snow, I think, it probably will be. At least, I don't think we'll see this again in many years, because history has dictated that. I mean, we haven't seen snow like this since 1895. And so, but who knows what will happen next year and in years after this. So we'll learn a lot from this. I think that having prioritized routes that we do for hurricane evacuation has helped us to a certain extent with this, but there'll always be more that we can do, and we'll learn from that. But a lot of what we were doing was putting together the right people in the right place geographically, so that say EMS was not limited by the major roadways. In other words, we didn't need the high rise to keep going. We didn't need I-10 to keep going. We had Chef Highway. We had the roads that have been around for a long, long time. That who knew that, and I'm saying this a little facetiously, but who knew the engineers knew back in the day, excuse me, how to build a road. And, not all of these elevated roads that, we're looking at 30, 35 miles of elevated roadways and bridges in the city. And those are the first things to freeze, and they're first things that are unavailable to you. So we really just focused on what roads we knew that we could make the most impact on and still travel on from a public safety perspective. And then fortunately, the residents listened to us about not getting out there. I mean, we had a few, and I'm saying a handful of folks that tried to get up onto the interstate in the middle of this, which was just crazy because they weren't going anywhere, and they had to be, kind of rescued, if you will, from the vehicle. And then we couldn't get to the vehicle because we couldn't get a tow truck on the incline of some of these places to get the vehicle down, and we'll address those issues if they come. But
public officials filming on the elevated roadway. I would have done that, but
where are you going to go? And that was one of the issues we had yesterday when the Crescent City Connection opened. The bridge itself is one thing, but as Doc pointed out, where are you going? How are you going to get on it, and how are you going to get off, and where are you going to? And so that was one of the things is like, even if you can get out there and drive, where are you going? And how are you going to get there? And that's been the biggest challenge throughout the last 3 days.
So what do we tell folks? What are those go-tos, especially with this event and what you've learned, right? So if you could say, here are the 5 things. We talk about hurricane flood preparation. We got our go-to list. We're used to that. But when you talk about a sustained weather event that's different from what we normally get, and I will equate this to a mini snow blizzard, or an ice event. What is the go-to post the event occurring? We know what it is with floods and hurricanes and tropical storms. What do we know now that we can tell our listening audience and we can share with people?
Well, I think out of this, I want to make sure that we always have sand. We always have sand on hand. I want to make sure that we have salt on hand We did order salt, and DOTD has given us as much salt as we need, which has helped us with this. But I would still feel more comfortable. It's, you can get it in bagged form. It sits on a pallet in the back of a warehouse, and it's there for you when you need it. I would like to see that, we look at in future that we have public works trucks that potentially we can hook on the spreaders to on the back, and even possibly a couple of snowplow blades just to have, in the future. They can sit in the yard. They can be there whenever you need to hook them up to a vehicle. They'll hook to pretty much any pickup truck or any dump truck. And so, some of those smaller little logistical things I think that we can have just in case this happens again. But then I think one of the things that we will take from this is the messaging. We've saved every message we've sent, obviously, and all of the strategy behind why we were going to send it and when and how, and we've learned a lot from that, just as far as kind of relating to the public, meeting the people where they are, and trying to send the right message at the right time to let them know, hey, we're with you. This is what you're going to face. Try to be ready in this way. I think that obviously as we move forward, we have to look at, we have a lot of exposed pipe in the city, and I think that that's going to become an issue over the next couple of days as things really thaw out, is, exposed piping in the city and exposed piping on residences, and how that maybe needs to be looked at in the future, as far as
new building codes,
building codes potentially. I don't think this is going to be something that's going to happen frequently, but freezing weather happens almost every year. Maybe not the snow, but we get into the 20s almost. I think every winter I've done this, maybe save one or two, we've had to operate warming centers and the like. I think another thing that we will have to learn from this, and it could be valuable not just for this, but for hurricanes and tornadoes and the like, is how we get our both our volunteers and our city employees that work in these warming centers or in these shelters, how we get them shift changed more effectively, because we have had challenges, quite frankly, with getting people to these centers when the roads were really bad. We managed to do it, and we had a lot of people, and God bless them for being patient with, and they just stayed on the shift and kept going until we could get them relieved. But there's some things that we need to look at, it just as far as our network of rec centers and how we prioritize some of the major roads getting there, just so we have a more reliable way of getting people transferred out. And then also that could mean potentially. Go ahead.
I want to stay there because this event brought to my attention a couple of things. Right, we know they exist, and Dr. Wyatt and I talk about them on the show all the time. The disparity, in how people live, the kind of harshness of what the lack of housing, affordable housing, and just the difficulties a large part of our population has in just surviving. But the amount of families that had to go to the warming centers because they didn't have heat in their homes. And I know another incident that Lena Stewart in my office was dealing with was that a young woman, and I think she had 4 kids, I think 3 young girls, but being in a shelter with grown men, and she left the shelter because she wasn't comfortable with the environment and some of the actions of the people in that shelter. So, how do we segregate families and children in many cases from some of these shelters? And then the other case, I was talking to Katie with NBC News about, we were trying to assist a person who was stuck out in the weather in a wheelchair, and the person was just kind of left out there, and how to transport or get that person to a shelter. So there are a whole lot of things I think that we have to reconsider that we've learned from this. And I think you're right. Even though it may not be a every year event, we've had a couple of 100-year storms in less than 100 years. I think what you're saying is we need to be prepared, correct?
Absolutely. And, to your point with the warming centers, we became very cognizant of that situation and started giving hotels to families that came in. And I think that was a better solution. And we were fortunate to have that option open to us. And I think that expanding on that into, we were able to do non-congregate sheltering during COVID. That unfortunately, when COVID ended, that program with FEMA ended. And we, when we do these types of operations, if you expect any reimbursement, they're not going to reimburse you for non-congregate sheltering. But I certainly think that with, the amount of hotels in the city and, that type of availability, whether we're talking about a hurricane or a tornado or an ice storm or a snowstorm, that having the ability to put people in hotels, I think is something that I certainly would like to advocate for. And then having, again, designated areas within the shelters, which we do to a certain extent. We are limited by what the footprint of the building is. But, there are places, most of the rec centers have like a larger gym and a smaller gym, and we are able to keep people kind of separated, kind of keep families together with kids, and then keep, singles and adults in a separate area within the facility. But it's by no means perfect.
Okay.
Well, listen, we absolutely appreciate what you do to keep us safe and updated. Any lasting thoughts before we have to let you go? Because we do have to break, but your information is extremely valuable. So any takeaway before we let you go?
I'm just constantly proud of the city I live in and the public, because I saw a lot of people having fun, which I'm totally unopposed to. But I saw a lot of people taking it seriously and staying off the roads. I mean, it was empty out there. And every time I feel like I have to go to the well to ask the public to do something and they continue to do it, I'm very grateful. And so, I just want the public to know that they're going to see dramatic improvement today with the weather, and we're going to get back to normal, and we've got a Super Bowl to finish up finalizing the plans for and keep moving, and that's what we're going to do.
Colin, one more thing. It's, of course, none of this happens without a cost. Are we covered under the emergency declaration to apply?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, we declared the day of. We've spent probably a little north of $2 million on this, and that's all the overtime, that's the public safety, that's the equipment, the snow plows, all that stuff. But we have reached that area where we've met our threshold for federal assistance, and so my big goal today is we started working with the state on getting a presidential declaration, and that's what we'll be moving towards. So this is most definitely reimbursable under the Stafford Act, and we're going to pursue that to its end until we get that.
And then lastly, increasingly we're learning how stretched our municipal budget is. As a matter of fact, there'll be a few more surprises I'm aware of that we'll deal with moving forward. But we know that water and salt water had an impact on our infrastructure, roadways, erosion, pipes during Katrina. But we also know from our neighbors and our friends around the world that when ice and snow sit on infrastructure and sit on buildings and sit on facilities, it has a whole nother impact. Are we going to be doing those assessments, and at some point will we get a feel for what the impact of that snow and that ice buildup sitting on our roadways, sitting on our homes, sitting on our public facilities? Will we get an impact of that at some point?
Oh, yes, we will, because we've already tasked code enforcement and safety and permits, and our property management, Office of Property Management, Department of Property Management, to start looking at the roofs in particular, because we have no clear concept of what that weight is and what that can do. And so it's a great point. It's something that we're going to have to, in the aftermath of this, we're going to have to take a lot of inventory on this.
Well, I can tell you what the weight is, because when we were shoveling snow to build snowmen, and then yesterday when we went to shovel it, it was ice under the snow. That's a whole nother. It was a whole
as
lot
it starts
heavy.
to get wet. Yeah, absolutely.
There was a whole lot of. So, Colin, thank you. How can people get in touch with you? How can they reach out to Homeland Security?
Yeah, we're always available at ready.nola.gov. If you ever want us to come in and any neighborhood groups, anyone wants to come and have a speaker come and just talk about preparedness for anything, but particularly around hurricanes and other things. We also do trainings on active shooter preparedness and awareness, and stop the bleed training and hands-only CPR. For a lot of these things with special events that are coming up might be interesting. You can request us to come out and train. You can request a speaker. And at the website, all of our contact information is there. And then, as always, I will say, if you want to sign up for alerts to come right to your phone, and we've sent out hundreds through these past couple of days. Maybe not hundreds, but enough to keep the public informed. I don't want to make it sound like we burn people out with messages. We don't. But you can always text NOLA Ready, one word, NOLA Ready, to 77295, and you'll be signed up for alerts, and you'll get the same alerts that we're sending out to our public safety, to the media, and to everyone, and you'll get those.
Well, we got Linda Lewis, one of our great servants from Armstrong Services, who deals with homeless families and displaced families and children. So they're going to be reaching out to NOLA Ready. And give that number one more time.
Yes, the website's ready.nola.gov, and if you want to sign up for alerts, it's texting NOLA Ready, one word, text NOLA Ready to 77295.
All right, thank you so much, man. God bless you.
Thanks, OT. Thank you, Doc.
And, all right.
Have a blessed one.
Thanks.
Well. I'm looking forward to the sunlight. Yeah, but I noticed shoveling the snow and that ice. Shoveling the snow was one thing, but the next day, shoveling to make a pathway, especially on the sidewalk and the patio, picking up that ice under the snow, that was heavy. Yeah. I could just imagine that sitting on someone's car, on their roof, an apartment. It's a lot different from just the snow.
Hey, what's you still there?
Yeah, I've been talking for the last 2 minutes. I guess you couldn't hear me.
I don't know what happened. It disconnected us. I couldn't hear you anymore. I had to call back. But that was a great interview. The last couple of questions were great that you asked, because, that's important. Because, there's a lot of resources going into the storm, and it's good to hear that there'll be some sort of reimbursement back to the city for making certain that we have the resources and things that we need to keep us safe here. So those were some valuable questions toward the end.
But that's what we do on the Good Morning Show. If I don't ask the question, you do. If you don't ask the question, our brains are connected when it comes to our community, and that's the one thing I can say. It's the beauty about doing what we do. Doc, I'm actually really looking forward to absorbing a little more of the sun today, but also kind of going out and assessing some of the damage and talking to people. But I can't wait to get back to whatever normal is. But I did want to ask him one other thing, but we can kind of talk about this, right? Man, we've been through a lot, huh? When is our break, right? Hopefully, man, the Super Bowl, Mardi Gras, French Quarter Fest, and Jazz Fest, hopefully, man, we'll get on our knees and pray for a break. But because for the New Year's Day terror to this, the whole dealing with stressed budgets, knowing that we need more money for our kids, more money for our seniors, Lord knows we need a break, especially from these events that we're not prepared for, Doc.
I mean, and I agree. And speaking of breaks, OT, are we going to go to break before we jump into conversation with the CEO of RTA, or are we going to go straight through and talk to Ms. Lona Hankins?
Well, I got to go to break because nature's calling.
Okay, so we're gonna go to break, and on the other side of the break, we'll jump into conversation with the CEO of RTA, Ms. Lona Hankins, right here on WBOK 12:30 a.m.
This transportation. We'll be back WBOK 12:30 a.m.
What New Orleans is talking about.
I'm just talking about it. Oh, and they talking about us. Talking about it. We'll be
all
back.
day long.
Start your day off right.
Just getting your day started.
Early morning gospel on WBOK 12:30 a.m.
NOLA Public Schools' main round enrollment for kindergarten through 12th grade is now open. With 73 schools available through the NOLA Public Schools Common Application Process, or NCAP, finding the right school fit for your family is easier than ever. List up to 12 choices to maximize your chances and apply by January 24th. We're all in, and we hope you are too. Apply today at enrollnolaps.com. That's enrollnolaps.com.
I'm Dr. Keith C. Ferdinand, cardiologist and professor of medicine at Tulane University here in New Orleans. I tell all of my patients to get the flu vaccine. Why? Because the same patients who are at risk for heart disease, obesity, hypertension, diabetes, chronic kidney disease are at risk of getting sick and even dying with the flu. Protect your health. Be flu ready NOLA, y'all. For more information, visit healthyheartcpp.org.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana communities through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, please visit us at www.jazzandheritage.org.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 12:30 a.m.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 12:30 a.m.
Back. Dr. White, OT, Early Bird, Myron on the box, and guest president and CEO of the Regional Transit Authority, Ms. Lona Hankins. Welcome, Lona Hankins. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning, Oliver. How are you? Good morning, Dr. Wyatt.
Good morning.
So how are you, Ms.
Hankins? To have you here, and we wanted to just give some updates, especially with like our bus services. Like, are you guys what's the timeline of being back up and running, especially with the kids who ride the buses to and from school? I know some schools are still closed as of today. I don't know what tomorrow will bring because they haven't yet said. But can you give us any insight and updates into those things?
Yes, we're going to do a phased opening. So right now we have supervisors out on the street assessing the roads. Our maintenance crews are headed back to the office. Well, they're there now because they're early birds. They are assessing the facilities as well as the fleet. And our goal is to do a phased approach. So we will be doing paratransit, particularly those folks who need us the most, thinking of our dialysis patients and our elderly tomorrow, just really trying to do critical needs first. And the ferries, once they can assess the conditions for slips and falls at the various landings, they will also also be starting service as soon as possible. Planned for tomorrow, but may happen later this afternoon, depending on the conditions they find. And then the larger buses, the fixed route buses, will more than likely start service on Saturday morning. And then streetcar will follow because of the technical nature of the streetcars. We have to assess the switches and the catenary lines to make sure there's not any damage. Those are our targeted dates. If we can beat it, we will definitely do that. Our team takes very much pride in returning to service as soon as possible. They are not idle creatures by nature. I had to caution some of our maintenance staff to not be superheroes and cowboys and come out in the weather. I guess they're by nature, they're bored. They don't want to sit at home and do nothing.
So let me ask you a question. It's kind of hard for me to hear, so I don't know what's happening with my phone, but hopefully you can hear this question. Just like Director Arnold said earlier, that this weather event was another teaching and learning experience, especially with the type of equipment or assets we need to keep in stock. Is there anything different about busing and tires and transportation with our friends up north who deal with this and what we've learned here that maybe we need to keep in inventory, Director, CEO?
Yeah, one, this is an unprecedented type storm. We don't have snow tires, and it may be a lesson learned for us to assess how many of the fleet do we have snow tires. But even if I had snow tires, our guys aren't conditioned to drive in the snow. So
correct.
Right. It's probably, I hate to say it this way, but a calculated risk benefit kind of analysis that needs to be done around the extra precaution. I know it's a burden for our community who are anxious to get back to work and those who need to get to work, right? But we also have to weigh the risk of a 40-foot vehicle causing an accident, right? So we always want to make sure we are safe with both our passengers and our operators. But it is something that the tires is something we definitely have to look into.
And where do the ferries fit on your timeline for full operation of RTA services?
We think the ferries is the one mode that can get up relatively quickly. So definitely tomorrow, but if we can get it up today, we will be doing that.
Well, that's absolutely good to hear. And do you know the percentage of school children who rely on your services to get to and from school? Because I know the RTA plays a part because of the transportation constraints on the school system itself. Do you know how many kids depend on the RTA to get to and from school?
I don't have an exact number on kids, but I think we have relationships with 5 to 10 schools. It's not that many schools that we have relationships with who they buy our bus tickets and rely on us. Most of them have the yellow bus service.
Yeah, I just wanted to know
CMOs,
that because, again, like I said, I know
schools.
that there was a plan to keep the kids home today. I haven't heard just yet about tomorrow, but I'm feeling like maybe some schools will start to make that announcement soon in terms of if they're going to have school tomorrow. I know a lot of the teachers are like, we might as well just start a fresh week. But as an educator, and someone who's deeply associated with schools, you know this too. The more days we lose, we still have to make them up somewhere, somehow. So I don't know that I would want to stay out if I didn't have to stay out, because they have to find those days back somewhere. So yeah, I think it's great to hear that the services will start to kind of come back to normalcy sooner than later.
Yeah, Doc, I'm not speaking on behalf of OPSB, but and the charters, but just from a operational perspective, I am sure they will have their facilities people out there looking at their buildings today, now that the roads are safe for people to drive, so that they can make that assessment whether or not they got to walk through to figure out their water leaks or what type of physical damage happens at the schools.
Yeah, OT, you still with us? Because I know he's having trouble. Both of us are having trouble with the hearing.
Yeah. I was
You there?
fading in and out. I'll ask you this question that I was able to get it in at the end of Colin's interview. What kind of financial condition, especially the stress on equipment, the stress on what you guys have to do, is there an additional burden because of this event? We seem to have one event compounded by the other that we just can't seem to get a break. But as you assess your agency financially, especially coming out of this, is there any hardship that you guys are going to endure?
So, this is unplanned overtime possibly, right? And we did have a problem with one of our facilities. One of the water lines froze. So we do have some physical damage that we have to work through, particularly at the canal facility. So that may be a challenge for us as well. So we are collecting, like every governmental entity, we're collecting the information such that when the Governor's Office of Homeland Security asks us what's our damage assessments, we can provide that so that in an effort to be eligible for a FEMA or federal reimbursements. FTA also helps us with disasters.
Okay. So how long do you expect, or will the weather continue to dictate that? Because a lot of people, have to get back to work. There are people who are working downtown who are preparing for the Super Bowl as well as conventions. I was at I spoke at a national convention a couple of weeks ago where we had thousands of people in town at the convention center. So I know you guys are working on, are there any specific routes of transportation and the lift? My family used the lift for my handicapped sister when she was alive. How quick would those operations be back up?
So, yes, we are prioritizing the lift. We are hoping to have services back up and running definitely tomorrow. Our teams are out assessing the roads now, as well as our maintenance teams are assessing the facilities and the streetcar lines. So it will be a staged opening. Friday, paratransit will be back up and running. Saturday, as many lines that we can get back up and running on the streets, the regular bus, the 40-foot bus, 30-foot bus, the fixed route lines. And then on Sunday, we anticipate the streetcars being open. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, if we can beat that timeline, we will. But, confidently, those are the timelines that we have right now.
Okay. Well, we appreciate it. Anything that we need to close out this segment with, any assurances you want to give the public, any areas of caution, any information you want to share with our public, and please give out a number where folks can call the RTA, our website they can go to.
Yep. So our website for information
Lorna,
is.
I'm sorry. Can I interject really quickly? I couldn't hear, but I didn't want to cut you off. But I didn't want you to miss the opportunity to talk about the opportunity pass before you give us that takeaway information.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have an opportunity pass, which is 0 fares for young people 16 through 24. So you can register for the pass at the library or with Ride New Orleans, and it is a free pass for a year. And that is a great opportunity for our young people who are navigating adulthood and trying to get to school, hang out with their friends, get to work, to have reliable transportation. To find information about our services and when we are planning on returning services, you can look on our website. That's NORTA, NORTA.com. Our ride line 248-3900, and LaPass, our mobile application. And you ask Oliver, I would encourage those folks who do not need to be on the road to stay off the roads until, so that we can allow the city to clear the roads.
I have no idea what's happening. I'm sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yes. So that
I'm sorry.
if we can
allow
encouraging
folks to stay off the road, I apologize for that.
No worries. If we can have our community to stay off the roads, that allows the city and the city officials their workers to clear the roads as quickly as possible, and then we can put bus service on as quickly as possible. So safety is paramount for us at this time. So you ask if I can, share anything with our community. That is what I would share, is just to stay off the roads for a little bit longer. I know everybody's now have cabin fever, but, stay home.
Listen, we started the show by saying that we just want to make certain that the experts in the field, our first responders, our Homeland Security Director, the CEO of RTA, our mayor, our elected officials, if they're asking you to stay home, please just stay home. It's just hold out a little bit longer. Safety is paramount. But thank you, Ms. Hankins, for being here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for the invaluable updates. We want to also thank our Homeland Security Director, Mr. Colin Arnold, and for all of you listening and tuning in each and every day, Monday through Friday. Thank you for tuning in. I want to invite you up next to the front porch with Graylin and Kimber. But as for the Good Morning Show, we're going to see y'all tomorrow. This is WBOK 1230 a.m. I'm Dr. Ashanti White. My co-host OT had to go, and our super producer, Nylan Sanders, is behind the glass, always holding us down. See y'all tomorrow.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go: shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms: irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Experience Bunchy, a powerful short film by Bama artist-in-residence Esty Elmo Wexler. This deeply moving film explores themes of identity, resilience, and cultural heritage. After the screening, join Esty as she shares her personal immigration journey from Ethiopia to Israel, reflecting on spirituality, motherhood, and the bonds between mothers and daughters. Don't wait. Register now at Eventbrite.com. Just search Bunchy on Eventbrite. Don't miss this unforgettable evening, Thursday, January 23rd, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the JCC, 5342 St. Charles Ave, New Orleans. This is a conversation you don't want to miss. See you there.
I'm Howard Robertson, founder and creator of the Play Ode app. Back in the day, we used to ask, how you living? And that's still a relevant question today. Listening to good stuff helps you live well, like what you hear on the Play Ode app. ODE stands for Our Digital Entertainment, so you enjoy the best radio stations playing the best classic R&B, hip-hop, gospel, smooth jazz, news, sports, and podcasts. And new sounds are coming at you in 2025, so don't wait or hesitate. Download PLAYODE today.
Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryant Banks from the Front Porch. We're coming up next.
Have you heard the secret of what New Orleans is talking about? I promise everything will be okay if you're listening here on the airwaves. It's that WBOK 12:30 a.m.
From the campus of Xavier University. WBOK 1230 AM. Go. An Equity Media Station.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Police now say 2 people are dead and 2 others are injured after a shooting at a Nashville, Tennessee high school this morning. They add 2 female students were shot by a 17-year-old male student. The shooter then turned the gun on himself. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is issuing an emergency order to prepare burn areas for rain, directing crews to clear debris, shore up hillsides, and protect the stormwater system from fire-related pollutants. Refugee flights to the U.S. have stopped after President Trump suspended the State Department's program, leaving thousands of Afghan refugees, including vetted ones, at risk. Some are now stranded abroad. And Barnstable County, Massachusetts is honoring Jeanne Morrison, chair of its Human Rights Advisory Commission, with the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Award for her decades of work advancing equity and justice on Cape Cod. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
New Schools for New Orleans wants to send a special shout out to our partner, the All-State Sugar Bowl. During the holiday break, over 30 teachers had the opportunity to ride in the New Year's Eve parade, and boy, did they have a blast. In addition, we had over 60 teachers attend the All-State Sugar Bowl game. Out of the 60, 11 teachers received a $1,000 gift card to purchase needed supplies to enhance the learning experiences for their students. Thank you, All-State Sugar Bowl, for your commitment to NOLA's teachers.
You're on the Front Porch with WBOK 1230 AM.
Tell them who I am. My style is the greatest. You've heard all my jams, but have you heard the latest? wow and give it to you with a little style. Girl, climb the walls and climb them high until you reach the ceiling. Cause Egyptian love is gonna make you cream just like a Twinkies feeling.